if they are promising, are strong, you think it'll be approved by the FDA, like how does like Numinus stem to benefit from this? And do we see descheduling for MDMA perhaps happen before the end of the calendar year? Hey everyone, welcome to our latest Traded Black podcast. I am your host, Shad Dales. Thanks for checking in. Today, we're talking psychedelics, and more importantly, I think you'll be interested, certain companies we like and why. And who are those companies? Let's find out as we bring in two very good experts. First person, he's a former Top Gun fighter pilot, Wall Street executive, host of the Max Afterburner podcast. Welcome him back to the podcast, Matthew Whiz Buckley. Good to see you, sir. How are things?
I'm good, my brother. How are you?
I am good. Good to see you in Denver. I know it was the first time we met, but it seems like like 10 years ago. You're a likable guy. You feel like you've known him your whole life, right?
There you go. You gravitate with good people, man, and good things happen.
Well said. Anthony Verrill, good to see you, sir. How are things?
Good to see you. It's good. It's good. Seeing increased volume, meaning increased interest, and it looks like there's some real buying going on in this space, which is fantastic to see.
Yeah. I think with this podcast, it's very important to share that a reminder that all views in the Traded Black podcast and the guests on this podcast are purely opinion. You should not treat any opinions expressed by us or guests as investment advice. And the views on this podcast are solely intended to be informational and are not investment advice. Okay. So let's begin with companies in this psychedelic space as to who we like and why. Wiz, you're obviously very, very well connected. Wall Street background. You follow this space inside and out. Last week, you outlined to all of your subscribers at your Top Gun Options Trading School that there are two companies that you really liked. And as a result, one of the companies actually jumped to over 10%. The first one, Compass Pathways, which everyone knows in this space is the big player. So first question, why did last week seem like the right time for you to invest in this company?
Great question, man. And as of us talking right now, Compass is up another 7%. So
well done.
Yeah, exactly. Right through the bullseye. As you know, we were out in Denver. Geez, what was that? 3, 4, however many weeks ago.
Yeah.
This is like a real episode of Billions, right? If you invest and you haven't watched Showtime Billions, you're a failure because it's kind of it's a true story, right? First of all, it's based on Stevie Cohen, which we can talk about in a little bit, who is a massive investor right now in the psychedelic space. But I bring up Billions because, Axe and his crew would always go into companies, right, and really dive in and take a look. Didn't get any more ground zero than out at the Psychedelic Science 23 convention out in Denver, where we actually got a chance to meet with some of these executives, the heavies at Compass, the heavies at atai, and shake hands, kiss babies, and really dig in underneath the hood. Now, Compass last week, in association with MAPS and the American Medical Association, announced CPT-3 codes, meaning, in this jargon, insurance reimbursement. So the AMA, the American Medical Association, all the innards of this stuff is being built, like the infrastructure to be able to get paid back for insurance, the infrastructure for clinics, like the three of us with Joe and talked about with the Healing REIT last week. All the scaffolding is being built for this industry for when, not if, when it is legal for therapeutic use. So that happened last week with Compass. In addition to, I forget, one of the houses upgraded the stock with a $120 price target. The stock's what, $10 right now? I mean, so it's.
What'd you think of that? Is that aggressive?
No. So, Shad, here's the deal with all the psychedelic stocks. Let me be clear. It is $19.99 or $2,000 internet stock. What do I mean by that? There's a Google and an Amazon. There's a Netscape and a Pets.com. You pick the right two, you're rich. You pick the wrong two, you're broke, right? So it's still a little bit of a wild west, but treat these names right now as lottery tickets, as biotech stocks, right? These biotech stocks or any sort of stock in the psychedelic space are very labor and capital intensive, right? Phase 1 trial, phase 2, phase 3. They ain't cheap to do, right? It takes a lot of money to do that, but what's it take? Just one of those things to hit, and boom, breaking news, Compass is up 500% on news of blah, blah, blah. So the stocks are incredibly cheap right now. They are a little bit of a lottery ticket, but if you choose wisely, Compass, atai, you can see some incredible upside.
Yeah, I mean, I think that thesis couldn't be more sound. I mean, I lived this the first time around with GWPH in the cannabis space with Epidiolex, and I mean, I think putting $120 price target on Compass, if you're looking at the boom bust perspective, I mean, I would say it's conservative. It's you're
Agreed.
looking at a $4 billion valuation, I think, as where the stock sits now. GWPH got taken out for I think 6.8 billion
Mhm.
at the time, and the total addressable market for Epidiolex is peanuts compared to what you're looking at with Comp 360 or any of these therapies that are going to come out. I mean, Whiz is bang on. I mean, it is a lottery ticket. It's taking a flyer on a position, but if you get the right one, I mean, the risk reward profile is there. How do you feel,
Yeah.
by the way, Wiz, about them putting out the 2027 timeline? I mean, for some people, it might be long in the tooth to stay in the position, but I actually kind of think it's a positive because I'd rather them tell me, hey, this is where we're looking as far as timelines go. And as we know, with everything from psilocybin to MDMA, this sector is going to take a while to build out infrastructure and be able
Agreed.
to actually create the mechanisms to create these therapies for the patient. So, I mean, I actually welcomed it when I saw that. I saw that in the release. I know that some of the people on Twitter, et cetera, were like, well, 2027, that's far out. It's like, it's 2.5 years out. Oh no, three and a half years out
Yeah.
from now. That's not too crazy.
Yeah. So,
Um,
1 year's tactical to me, 3 years
yeah,
strategic, 5 years is kind of a grand strategic. But if you're the commanding officer of one of these companies, man, that's how you have to think, right? What is
yeah,
the star I'm navigating to? What puts a smile on my face and my company in 5 years from now,
Yeah.
4 to 5 years from now? And then you go backwards from there, right? But at least we're all staring up at that same star that we're navigating to. So I love that time frame. But
Mm.
tactically, the closer alligators to the boat, and Chad, I think we'll get into this, is the MDMA in the next 6
yeah,
months to 12 months. So if you are thinking about these names, Chad and I and Anthony, we talked about this in Denver about the medicine, it calls to you. Well,
yeah,
in the investing of these names, if you're feeling it kind of calling to you right now, you should probably get into it, man, because
Yeah.
you will get one of these breaking news announcements, and one of these names is just insanely, it's gone, and you missed
yeah.
it.
Wiz, how do you communicate to your investors in a day and an age where investors want to see things move like yesterday? You know, previous generations, if you invested in something and you thought the value of the company would be worth more in 3 years from what it is now, that's what people did.
Mm-hmm.
Where now it's just like, it's almost like a casino, the way people just want to like just throw money and want instant gratification. Because let's face it, in society, you can go onto Amazon, whatever you want, it's on your doorstep within 3 hours. But
Sure.
how do you deal with that when trying to manage expectations of investors? Because if they're patient with the right information, things can be
Yeah.
very valuable for them. Sorry, we cut you off. Did you hear that, Wiz? Or
Yeah, no, I did. Sorry about that. So, Shad, it's a great question because you're right. The atmosphere now is I want my money, I want it now. So,
Yeah.
I lead with the exact opposite of that attitude in the psychedelic space, and here's what I mean. First of all, in the psychedelic space, and as you guys know, I run the No Fallen Heroes Foundation, right? So it's a 501c3 dedicated to saving the lives of veterans, first responders, and their families with psychedelic assisted therapy. So I call this sector a self-licking ice cream cone, right? Check this out. You can potentially help save a life or change a life and potentially profit. So, usually people are just focused on what? Profit. I need it and I want it now, Wiz. And if I don't get it, I'm pretty upset. I don't lead with that, actually, Shad. I lead with, check this out. You can invest in a space right now that is helping humanity. I put it on a chart, man. Here's the United States and the world right now, and we're
Yeah.
kind of in a nosedive, man. It's a bad place. Anthony brought up a price target in 2027. I don't even know if the world's going to exist right now, man. We got war in. I didn't think in my lifetime I'd be using the words war in Europe. There's a
I
war
know.
in Europe right now. China is their mouth is watering over Taiwan. And speaking of 27, Xi Jinping told the heads of his joint chiefs of staff, like, be ready to invade by Taiwan by 27. We got Israel, we got Iran. So there's so much going on. But this space, the rise of this
I
space,
know.
the rise of psychedelic assisted therapy might intersect the implosion of the world. So when people are like, when for profit, I'm like, no. Why don't you lead with your heart and your truth? And guess what's going to come after that? Potential profit. So all the people at Top Gun Options I've been telling to, like we just talked about, I said, this is internet 1999, 2000,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
I'm giving you the intel that I saw in Denver and that I'm seeing on the front lines, but put kind of profit in the background a little bit, lead with good, and I guarantee you profit's going to follow that.
Well said.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing with this sector. It's very easy to fundamentally believe in. I mean, especially because
Exactly.
you can see firsthand accounts on a daily basis. I mean, you can actually talk to people that are touched by the medicine, talk to the practitioners. I mean, that shit, the heads of these companies are actually pretty easily accessible.
Yeah.
All things considered at conferences and online, and it's very easy to see the long term vision of the sector very very easily from a firsthand account today, and it is just patience. I mean, you're not going to get crypto. I mean, you will potentially get crypto gains in this sector, but it's not going to come in 5 days.
Yeah.
And
It's going to
it's
take. It's
funny
going to
out
be a much longer time horizon.
agreed. It's funny because out in Denver, they were either dressed like feds or they were pharma executives, right? They were either fed or
Yeah.
pharma executives. So
Yeah.
pharma speaks with forked tongue right now, right?
Yeah.
They kind of poo poo all this stuff, while at the same time they're trying to build a moat around it. But
Yep.
God's a great pharmacologist. You can't patent a root and you can't trademark a toad. So
No.
when, not if, big pharma jumps in with their size 12 boots, man, all bets are off. And I think
Yeah.
the way big pharma is looking at this right now, whether it's a Compass, a atai, a MindMed, a Cybin, a bunch of different names, Choose Numinus, I think they're waiting for the dust to settle, and then they're going to swoop in and go, yeah, here's a check for all of you, and now you're mine. So that's
Yeah.
the other long-term play. Anthony, when you look at the 27 is Pfizer Moderna, one of these guys or gals just comes in and strokes a big check and takes it all over. Now,
Yeah.
that's the Gordon Gecko talking in me, which would be fantastic. The Whiz in me hates that. I mean, that makes my skin crawl. But if we're talking about making money, that's a distinct possibility that's going to happen. That these names just get scooped up by big pharma.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, I don't want to say unfortunately, because I mean, obviously the economic benefit to everybody involved would be massive, but I see that happening. I don't see a world where big pharma doesn't come in and
Yeah.
gobble everything up. I mean, I hate to draw another crypto parallel, but we just saw it with Bitcoin. Jamie Dimon, Fidelity, Invesco, Larry Fink at BlackRock, they've poo-pooed crypto for the past 4 years, and now they're in line at the SEC to
Correct.
open spot Bitcoin ETFs.
Yeah.
The big
Yeah.
pharma companies are going to do the same thing. They're
Yeah.
going to poo-poo this. Meanwhile, they're watching everything. They're planting certain flags, and it's going to become an inflection point to where they just, I mean, they throw 10, 20, 30 billion dollars
Yeah.
on the acquisition front like it's nothing.
Yeah.
Correct.
I mean, they're going to come to play in this sector.
Agreed.
I don't know if it'd be a net benefit for the patients, but for the economic participants involved, yes. I mean, that's best case scenario for
Correct.
most of us.
Yeah,
Well-
it's funny you bring that up, Andy, because I tell people I'm bipolar, right? Half of me is Wiz and a human and leading with his heart, and the other half is Gordon Gecko, right?
Yeah.
Just like in the movie Wall Street. You want a friend, get a dog. I'm going to talk about
Yeah.
making money, and if you want to make money, I guarantee a big farm is going to. They're already in here. They're already maneuvering around, and when you. When I did my ibogaine journey with Marcus Luttrell, the lone survivor, and Jared Taylor, one of the founders of Black Rifle, man, those guys. I couldn't even look at alcohol for a year. It made me physically ill. I bring that up because ibogaine's an addiction interrupter. When you look at the studies, you look at the Excel sheets and the booger eaters and the lab coats, they're like 85% success rate with heroin addicts.
Wow.
There's a great documentary called Dosed.
85%?
85%, man. Watch the documentary Dosed. This lady, horrible heroin addiction, a weekend of ibogaine. She was in it. Never couldn't even look at the stuff again. An 85% success rate on ibogaine out to 3 years.
Yeah.
They never even look at heroin again.
That's
That is
crazy.
life changing. So
Wiz, you're connected to people in Washington. Like what's their, like, who are you speaking to without naming names, but what's the feedback and sentiment that you're hearing out of Washington that pertains to the industry?
definitely going to name names actually, because Morgan Luttrell, Marcus's brother, also a Navy SEAL, now a congressman. And Dan Crenshaw, Congressman Crenshaw, former Navy SEAL, injured in combat. These guys, a couple weeks ago, put in the NDAA, National Defense Authorization Act, $75 million, which they can find in their couch. I think we burn that in a minute in this country, for psychedelic, research into active duty, not only just veterans, but even folks on active duty. So the Republicans, thanks to veterans, are being dragged, not necessarily dragged, but they're being brought to this debate. The Democrats are already there, right? They've been there. It's the Republicans that were dragging, and you guys saw them in Denver. I mean, former governor of Texas, Rick Perry, ran for president. He stole my line. I've been using this line first. I think he stole it from me. He goes, 5 years ago, me running for president, if I heard me advocating for this, I'd kick my own ass. But here I am. This is life-saving treatment. So I don't think it's a matter of if, but when. But as Dan Crenshaw said, I'll steal this from his press conference. He's like, where do good ideas go to die? The Senate. He's like, the House approved it last year. They're going to approve it again this year. It's the effing Senate. And guess what? Big Pharma, who we just talked about, and also the alcohol lobby, man. They have big checkbooks, don't they? So the tobacco, the alcohol lobby, Big Pharma, they get in senators' ears, and so it's the Senate that needs to act.
Are you familiar with the Safe Banking Act and cannabis, and could this play out the same way? Like, I hate to bring that up.
No, I'll defer to Anthony on that one.
It's the same thing. It keeps going to the Senate to die. It keeps getting through the House, and then it goes to the Senate, and just dead on arrival.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, both of these sectors are in the same political quagmire together. One, I think, though, as much as I love cannabis, to me, cannabis is recreational. For me, psychedelics, this is seriously paradigm shifting shit that we're dealing with. This is much for the betterment of humanity versus cannabis. So, I mean, if I had to take one or the other, I'm picking psychedelics and hoping that they run with it.
Yeah.
Because the net benefit to humanity will be much bigger than legalizing something like cannabis.
And I think
we're both in the same boat.
Agreed. And for better or for worse, I think the general public kind of, to your point, Anthony, says cannabis is a little bit more, quote, recreational. When they hear about me lying on a bed in Mexico for 12 to 14 hours in it, you're not taking ibogaine and going out to a club, man. You're not taking ibogaine and going anywhere. And oh, by the way, probably don't want to do it again in my life. I think I got what I needed and kind of unfornicated my current existence. So you're right, that for better or worse, there's a little bit of a perception about those two sectors where I think psychedelics is going to rock it.
But I mean, also as a member of the armed services and someone that served this country, you shouldn't have had to go to, where was it, Mexico?
Costa Rica.
Costa Rica. You should not have to go abroad to go seek treatment like that. That should be offered on U.S. soil to U.S. residents and be standardized and legal.
And be paid for.
Changing.
Paid for.
Yes.
By Uncle Sam.
Importantly, yes. Paid for. But I mean, it's gross that that's what you have to turn to, which I'm hoping that changes very quickly.
I see your eyes lit up there, Whiz, because I know this has been a big topic for you pertaining to No Fallen Heroes, right?
Oh my God, man. It literally, when I talk to average Americans and I explain that we're going to Costa Rica and Mexico to heal trauma inflicted serving this country, the color runs out of their face. They're furious. Yeah. They're furious. So thankfully, Luttrell and Crenshaw and some of the other guys and gals are pushing us forward. But, and not to get too off topic, but whenever there's a horror of a mass shooting, what's the knee-jerk reaction? Ban guns. Why? If it saves just one life, wouldn't it be worth it? I'm like, okay, can you delete mass shooting and put in the word veteran? Anywhere from 22 to 44 veterans die every day in this country taking their own lives. If we could save just one veteran life with this therapy, wouldn't it be worth it? But for somehow that narrative isn't getting there. But that's my mission objective of No Fallen Heroes. I'll be up in D.C. in a couple weeks, again, walking the halls of Congress. And it's really interesting because, off record, they'll kind of elbow me like, dude, I'm completely on board with this, but you're going to have a problem with Big Pharma and, all that stuff. I'm like, I ain't going to, lead.
Yeah.
Lead, follower, get out of the way. I don't have a problem with Big Pharma. You do, Congressman. Lead.
Well,
so, yeah.
Dr. Jeannie Fontana, who's leading that initiative in California called Tree California that you met briefly when we were in Denver.
Yeah.
Um, we can't be in a day and an age now with big pharma where it's capitalization at all costs. Like we can't live those lives anymore, and that's where a lot of the conversation's going. But we bring in people like the Steve Cohens of the world, like some of the
Mm,
biggest philanthropists in the world. I think is only going to push the initiative even more at the current state. But
yeah.
one of the things I learned during this podcast with Jeannie, and there's been numbers that have floated around about how the industry is going to be between like 12 and 15 billion by the year 2029. Jeannie was telling me that each year the US government spends $820 billion towards substance use disorder. So if we're
Yeah.
seeing the data that we're creating, how does 12 to 15 billion even make any sense? Like we're just getting started if they're spending that kind of money annually, like right now. Would you not think?
Yeah, man. Well, and let's go into the future. I think we're going to look back on this time like, what were we waiting for? Or
I
what were
agree.
we doing? What took you so long? Like, future Whiz is going to look back and go, oh my God, man, remember those days? This ain't going to sound too popular, but I'm going to throw it out there because I believe it to my heart. Crime, huge issue, huge issue. The cities are just rampant. Criminals absolutely should do psychedelic assisted therapy. When it destroys that ego and shows you who you truly are, a good soul, I guarantee you the rate of recidivism for criminals would go, it would be a fraction of what it is. I brought that up on my podcast and people are like, dude, I didn't even think about that. I'm like, yeah, man,
Yeah.
you want to start fixing people? Fix what's rotten in their core. So even that, I can't even, again, 5 years ago, if I heard me say something like that, I would have kicked my own ass, but it's the absolute truth. These things can heal a lot. Now, I'm not a doctor. I don't play one on TV or my podcast. These aren't for everybody, right? I mean,
No.
you can heal walking on the beach, hot yoga, breath work, climb to the top of a mountain in Nepal. There are all sorts of ways for people to heal. But like I say, whether it's Marcus Luttrell or Whiz Buckley, kind of radical dudes who might have had some radical stuff happen to them, maybe, radical healing is right.
Yeah. Let's dive in now to company number 2 that you picked last week, Atai Life Sciences. Again, from what I said off the top, why was the timing right for you last week?
Yeah, so Atai, I have to look right now just
He's
because
got
I
his reading
think it's
glasses on. This is
I
important.
do, man. I got my cheaters. 5%. So Atai's up 5% as we're talking about it. It was always on the back burner as one of the names. And before we dig into Atai, Shad, I want to PSIL. Write that one down. It's an
Yeah.
ETF. So, and
Well
Anthony's
said.
familiar with it. If you don't
Oh,
want
yeah.
to kind of pick winners and losers in the psychedelic space, pick a basket of them,
Yep.
right? So SIL, PSIL, is a psychedelic ETF. So it's a smorgasbord of a Compass, of an Atai, of a MindMed, of a Cybin. So if one of those blows up to the downside, it might dent it a little bit, but one of them explodes, you're going to do pretty good. So before I forget, make sure you write down SIL and look into that. But
Yep.
what really pushed me over the edge, Shad, was going to Denver and meeting Christian Angermeyer, meeting the commanding
Yeah.
officer. As Anthony said earlier, these guys and gals are very accessible. When,
Good
you
point.
ain't meeting Bob Iger anytime soon, of Disney or a Jamie Dimon, right? But the psychedelic CEOs, hell, you could probably email them today type of folks. They're really approachable, and that should tell you something about the space. But
Yeah.
seeing him in Denver and meeting him and just listening to what he had to say, I'm like, done. That was an Axe Capital moment. Meet the CEO, regular dude, done. Plus, not that he's an oracle of the Silicon Valley. Peter Thiel,
Yeah.
the dude's kind of known for making some good investments every once in a while. He's a massive supporter, massive investor in Atai. And finally, I guess the third thing for me is that Atai actually makes money. They have products that they sell, and I think out of look it up on your own, but like 7 of the last 10 quarters, they actually made money on products. They're not just, a lotto ticket like, hey, man, one of these is going to hit. They're actually selling things currently, which I like seeing as an investor.
Yep.
Yeah, and I mean, I love atai. I mean, they came out in their earnings report in May. They've got 250 million in cash.
Yep.
That will get them to about first half of 2026. I mean, their indications, and you can argue that atai is also a. I don't want to say it's a hedge against Compass, but they're levered to Compass. They've got a large position in
Yeah, good
Compass. So
point.
buying atai, you're buying exposure to Compass, and
Good point.
they're fully down the gamut of indications that I believe the psychedelics should be applied to. I mean, they're in PTSD, TRD, general anxiety order. I think it was opioid addiction, eating disorders. They're diversified, and Christian's a good friend of the show. He's on all the time. So I mean, yeah, I'm sold on Christian as an operator as well. When it
Mhm.
comes to a tie, and you can see that the institutions obviously like it as well because
Yeah.
there's been buyers in that stock for the past week now, buying size.
Yeah, I think psychedelic science was a big deal, fellas.
Yeah,
A couple
Huge.
when we got back from Denver, the Wall Street Journal, it's on three of my tabs. The Street Journal,
yep,
3 days in a row, had
Um,
articles on the psychedelic space from Elon Musk and all the Steve Jobs and all the guys and gals in Silicon Valley do it. The next day was psilocybin. It's all the
yeah,
rage. What's this mean to you? And then the last article was MAPS, getting having I think it was a private offering or something like that, getting a
yeah.
little bit of a bridge loan to get them to where MDMA is going to be legal. So even
yeah.
just leaving psychedelic science, I think it validated a lot of investment thesis, and I could not be more bullish. The one article in the journal said, hey, a couple years ago, this psychedelic science thing was Rick Doblin and a couple thousand hippies. This year, as you guys saw, it was 12 to 13,000 athletes, veterans, politicians, and hippies. And they, I think next year it might be, 20,000 people. So,
Oh, I think
and
so.
yeah, not hopefully, I'm gonna manifest this. Let's do it right now, fellas. Is by next psychedelic science, MDMA is legal for therapeutic
Yeah,
use.
I think that's
yeah.
fair. I will say that those stories in the Wall Street Journal were not just stories; they were front page stories. So
Correct.
They were
that,
everywhere. It was Forbes, Wall Street Journal, Market Watch.
Yeah.
I mean, Cody was posting stories faster than I could see them coming out. His
Yeah.
entire feed was like boom, boom, boom,
The
boom, front
CEO of
page.
MAPS was on
Yeah.
Fast Money one night on CNBC. I
Yep.
mean, it's here, folks. So
yeah.
I mean, it's already been here. Wake up to it, man, because the
But I mean,
upside is unlimited.
you bring up a pretty good point though, is when you look at this sector, like the market participants as well as the just general consumers, there's a broad spectrum. I mean, you've got the hippies, you've got the bankers, you've got people that are in the middle. I mean, we've seen a little bit of apprehension from both sides to kind of come together. And
Sure.
I mean, I think that it's indicative of the sector that everyone needs to come together and needs to understand that the mission is this needs to broaden out. There is room here for decrim. There's room for true medicine. There's also space in the middle for everybody. I mean, it needs to be a broad approach. It's not like big pharma is going to come in and just everybody wins. I
Agreed.
think there is space for those retreats that are down in Mexico and Costa Rica and the Bahamas, but there also needs to be standardized clinics,
Yeah.
and standardizations of medicine in North America, for people to be getting therapies as well.
Think of the
And
people getting involved
that's
too.
going to be important.
The,
Yeah,
the the people that are getting involved. Like when we sat down again, the podcast that we did prior to you in Denver with Jeannie Fontana from Treat California. Like
Hmm.
she has a background where she got a government grant within the state of California for stem cell treatment for 8.5 billion. And now with Treat California, she's doing this for 5. So this isn't just anybody that has this crazy government grant that they're trying to receive. This is
Right.
actually a track record of success. And when I see her team and the people that are in place, bankers, successful entrepreneurs that are
Veterans.
selling their
Yeah.
yeah,
companies and are
Hmm.
fully fledged because they feel this is the biggest opportunity of their life. You can't help but just listen. That's the beautiful part about this industry is, Shaquille O'Neal said it best. He became a very successful investor when he met with Jeff Bezos and said, invest in things that improve people's lives. And Shaq, as we
yeah.
know, is a pretty sophisticated investor. But this is the stuff that's going on right now behind the scenes, which is really the fun part of being a part of this journey, right?
Yeah, and Anthony brings up a good point I want to get back to. So I was a little torn, right, when If big pharma jumps in, it's almost like the Starbucks is Asian or McDonald's is Asian, if I can use those words, of healing, right? Hey, if you only got an hour in between yoga and car line, come to our clinic and heal. And I was kind of like, oh, well, that takes the sacredness out of it. And then I had to reflect. I'm like, wait a minute. If a human being is saying to themselves, like, you know what, I need a little bit of help, or I want to be a better husband, father, human, whatever, I'm going to support that. So to Anthony's point, I think that the spectrum of this is incredible. You still will have people who want to go to Costa Rica or Mexico, but hey, man, if you do only have a little bit of time because your life is so chaotic and you want to try something that makes you just fill in 10% better, man, I'm all about that. So just to show you the wide swath of investing potential and healing. And again, it's so you guys will appreciate this. So, before my Top Gun Options psychedelic brief last week, I was, talking about it on social media, and I was catching a little bit of flack, right? People were like, oh, you're profiting off healing or something like that. I'm like, hang on a second, man. I'm leading with, I want to help save and change people's lives. Underneath that, if you can potentially make money while doing that, holy crap, man, that is a win-win-win, right? I'm not Bobby Axelrod here, just leading with, I'm in this for the money. I led with, I started a foundation to save lives. And oh, by the way, there's public companies and you could potentially make money on this. So it was funny. I was getting a little bit of pokes, but I love that type of stuff because I'm like, hey, I'm putting down the ladder to save lives, man. But if I can make money while doing it, what are you, stupid? Join me.
I mean, some of those arguments are valid, but at the same time, like those people tend to be naive. Like the way the world works is big money comes in and then you commercialize and scale. Like there isn't any other way to do it.
Correct.
Unfortunately. If people don't want big pharma and people don't want big money and institutional capital to come in, then it's going to stay fringe. It's not going to change as many lives as people want, and it's never going to be accepted at scale in a country like the US. You have to come to terms with that. It's a necessary evil.
Yeah.
I don't see it souring what we have right now. I think that people are going to be apprehensive to it and want to keep it sacred. But if they want to be able to enjoy their sacred ceremonies and not have to worry about repercussions, they're going to need the commercialization and the big money that comes in, because then it's just going to be standardized and accepted. And you can be at both ends of the spectrum and you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
And just go on with themselves.
There are people that would complain it's not hot enough in hell, right? So I get that. There's a happy medium in there, right in the middle, where we can find synchronicity, right? In the No Fallen Heroes Foundation, whenever we do an Iboga retreat or an Ibogaine retreat, we actually have tribes in Gabon where we donate or send money. So we have reciprocity with the medicine. So we're not a leech, right? It's all one team, one fight. And this medicine, whether it's Iboga or Ibogaine or ayahuasca from Peru or anything like that, the medicine wants to spread. Right. Yeah. Even the most oldest medicine man or woman in the woods would be thrilled to know that it's getting out here. Obviously, you don't want to just lead with profit and all that type of stuff. But, you guys are good guys. I'm a good dude. We all kind of gravitate together. The universe is going to remove the crappy people out of the way no matter what, man. And the folks that are leading with their hearts and truth and really trying to put the ladder down to help save and change lives, the universe is going to bring goodness to them. I guarantee it. And again, 5-year-old me, if I heard me say that on a podcast, I'd smack me in the face. But I actually believe that now.
Here you are today.
Right? I mean, the way I see it is if a corporation has to make $10,000, $15,000 per person profit, sure, but the net benefit to that individual is astounding. Like, it's going to
people need
fellas,
to understand go ahead.
When I, if I'm not on a retreat that we sponsor, but I get a text after a retreat that says, Whiz, I don't want to kill myself anymore. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Saving just one life. Yeah. The generational trauma of somebody taking their own, you can't even put it in words, as you guys can imagine. So just one is worth it. And we're doing a hell of a lot more than one. So there's there's a happy medium. You know, when you guys come down to South Florida and I take you flying in the fighter jet, when we fly some formation, there's a nice sweet power spot when you're flying formation with another airplane where you're in it. And I think
I
we're going to
saw
end up
that.
in that
You
We
had
got
the
to do
space.
it.
guy on this. You had the guy on
I'm
the
gonna
last. You
throw
guys
up,
were like
but let's do
rolling.
it.
You guys were like rolling
Oh yeah.
with the other plane like next to you. That looked wild.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's called a canopy roll, right? But
Yeah.
I
Yes.
tell you guys, Shad, you better eat a banana for breakfast because it's going to taste the same coming up as it did going down.
Yeah, I'm one of those guys where I don't enjoy it, but the fear of missing out on something outweighs it. So I'm gonna go on, even if it like just knocks the shit out of me for a couple of days. Anything for a good podcast, right?
Killer ratings, you
Oh,
got it.
exactly. I was watching a clip last night. John Wayne, where the kid's by the river fishing. He says he doesn't know how to swim, and he
Oh, he
grabs him, hold him by the back of the shirt, and throws him in. And I'm thinking, man, you got these people jabbing you. Whiz, can you imagine John Wayne in this day and age and what he would be putting up with, right?
Oh my God, man, that's a movie in and of
What do you mean
itself.
you can't swim? Just
He threw him in. You can now. Figure it
all
out.
right. You touched on earlier, a year from now, MDMA will be legalized. Want to touch on our last company, which is Numinus, who obviously has a close working partnership with MAPS, who imminently is going to be releasing their phase 3 data readouts. And, I'm hearing they're going to be really, really good. We won't know it until we see it. But if they are a good readout, like a couple things that you and I have talked about too, is that if they are promising, are strong, you think it'll be approved by the FDA? Like, how does like Numinous stem to benefit from this? And do we see descheduling for MDMA perhaps happen before the end of the calendar year?
Man, this is tough, right? And I'm gonna channel my inner Rick Doblin because he, just listen to him in Denver. He's like, I hate putting these dates on it, man, because they always slide a little bit. But he's
Yeah.
like, this time I really, really feel it, right? He's like,
Yeah.
especially with like we talked about, the codes coming out and there's a whole bunch of infrastructure changing. He kind of looked at us and said, I really, really, really think by the end of the year it gets rescheduled, and the beginning of 24 it's approved for therapeutic use. So he kind of gave me a whiz 6 to 12 months, brother, type of thing. And I believe that guy. I trust him with my life, type of thing. So we're there, right? It's just dotting the I's, crossing the T's, all that type of stuff in DC. And it's frustrating, but when that day comes, man, it's the dam. It's just boom. The dam is going to break for all of these names. I'm not a big Numinous guy. I'll defer to Anthony on that one. But and that Wall Street Journal article we were alluding to, I forget the number. I should know this by now. But the worldwide, because remember, no offense to other countries, most foreign countries go, well, if the FDA approved it, our Somali Department of whatever is approved. The worldwide MDMA potential, I think, might have even had a T in it, like $1 trillion. So this time next year, fellas, it will be a different world. Hopefully we're still here and it's a different world to the better, but I'll defer to Anthony with Numinous.
Yeah. I mean, in regards to Numinous, full disclosure, that's my largest psychedelic position. So none of this is financial advice. This is all my opinion, my personal opinion, that you shouldn't take as fact. But I see it as having the shortest time horizon to success with MDMA. I like that they're going after clinics. I like their relationship with MAPS. And I weighted it in my portfolio as the heaviest psychedelic holding because of that. I think there's longer time horizons on atai and compass. Granted, I think the risk reward is probably bigger in atai and compass than it does Numinous. But Numinous has that short term wow factor. So if Numinous does become a net beneficiary of the MDMA momentum and these periods in time are met, I will probably take my profits from Numinous and roll them into Compass and atai. But I like it very much so as a differentiated play. I don't have any other plays in the clinic space except for Numinous. And I think they could be a sole beneficiary of that. And I think MDMA is going to help a lot of people. And I think that it's going to be the canary in the coal mine as far as first to market as far as psychedelic assisted therapies go. That being said, I think that there will be key learnings that are learned
Very.
for the players in psilocybin, for the players in the other molecules with a longer time horizon,
Yeah.
and you could see some more efficiencies there. So I mean, yeah, I do thoroughly like Numinus. I'm talking with my wallet, and it's also based on the thesis of I think it's got the shortest time horizon to a really impactful moment for the company versus any of the others in the space.
The To piggyback on the back of Anthony there, this can't be understated, right? And this is Rick Doblin and the MAPS study, the phase 3 trials with PTSD in veterans.
Yeah,
Not a 10%, 50% reduction in PTSD, which would be fantastic, right? Even it fixed my PTSD 10% or half, 100%. In this clinical trial, there are many veterans who have zero signs,
Surreal.
symptoms, indications of PTSD, folks. I can't overstate, whatever the hell state enough the healing power of PTSD, of MDMA for PTSD and traumatic brain injury. When the American public sees these studies, again, this is a Rick Doblin from Moses himself, like Whiz, when Rick Doblin's surprised, like,
yeah.
I'm blown away that these veterans are showing zero PTSD
How
a
do you put
year
a
after
value on
treatment.
that? Like, how
It,
do you put a value on that?
priceless,
Oh, we can put a
priceless.
yeah. It's definitely priceless, and I mean it's also on the MDMA front. I mean, I can see it getting installed into things such as the VA having. I mean, trauma workers should probably be having some sort of
Oh my
assisted
God, yeah. First,
Yeah.
an MDMA assisted therapy.
100%.
I had spoke to the surgeon from the Pulse nightclub shooting in Orlando,
Yeah.
who is now a huge ketamine advocate, and he was like, "I've never experienced anything like that." He was like, "It was a war zone. I had people that were just coming into my OR that were just it was gruesome, just to be blunt. But yes, I mean, I think that there's much more that there's a huge applicability for MDMA
Yeah.
in the real world right now with people that can be recognized very shortly here.
Eh,
Hopefully, if the government doesn't start to spin, which we know it can very easily.
Yeah.
Let me get this out here real quick, because if we're talking about veterans or the ER doctor from Pulse nightclub shooting, let me be very clear to all the listeners here, folks. Trauma is trauma,
Yeah.
right? In the military, we have a horrible ethos of trauma shaming, right? Like, well, you didn't have your buddy's head blow up, in your face, so your trauma. If something is a horror to you or a trauma in your life
Yeah.
from your childhood or whatever it is, folks, don't minimize your own trauma, right? So don't sit there and like, well, I haven't experienced anything, but this kind of sucks. Well, then it kind of sucks, right?
Yeah.
So these medicines will be able to help everybody. Don't sit there and trauma shame yourself like, well, I don't deserve to, because my trauma. No, it isn't. It isn't less than anybody else's. It is. If it hurts you, I'm here to tell you personally that healing is possible. And before I forget, Chad, I know we talked about big pharma, which might be I have a buddy who's like, hey, shrimp are a vehicle for eating cocktail sauce. So if you're sitting there like, I don't know about these psychedelic stocks down here, maybe big pharma, might be safer for you to invest in. And you guys did a great interview with my brothers and, Daniel and Cody with the Healing REIT and Joe.
Yeah.
Look at infrastructure plays. I know
Yeah.
this wasn't on our
Yeah.
brief, but folks,
It's Numinus.
the real
NCRE.
estate.
That's
There
what
you
it goes
go.
to.
Look at potential. Here's what I can say.
Joe
Look
said
at
real
some of the
estate, money. First thing in the money going is real estate, right?
boom. Look at the largest publicly traded REITs in America, and kind of like big pharma, they're going to wait for the dust to settle and
Yeah.
probably swoop in and go, we own all these clinics now. Here's a huge check. So
Yeah.
potential another trade idea, start put on your idea board or wherever you write down your trade ideas. Real estate, man. Like you
Yeah.
said, Joe, that's another potential psychedelic sector play would
Yeah.
be infrastructure. Where's this taking place? Because you ain't doing an MDMA journey at your current general practitioner's office with National Geographic magazines from 1982,
Yeah.
sitting
Yeah.
there, wax paper on the recliner thing. It has to be a room with two people, a nice couch, and all sorts of stuff. So infrastructure is a trade idea I'd throw over my shoulder as well.
full disclosure, Numinus is a client of ours, and I do have a position in it as well. But listen, what'd you guys think? Like I said that we'd be 20 minutes, Whiz. I think we're 45 minutes in, and I feel like we
Holy
could talk
shit!
for
Really?
another
Yeah.
hour. This has
Wow.
been great.
Yeah.
Phenomenal
Well, so I can
conversation.
tell that's a good thing because I can tell Anthony's passionate about it. I'm clearly passionate about it, and you are too. So that hopefully that comes across, man. I've never been more passionate about something that, first of all, can save and change lives and potentially profit, like we talked about.
Yeah. And at the same time, too, in addition to passion, share your journey, the people that you're meeting with, the thought leaders you're speaking with, and what's some of the feedback that you receive that you can share, obviously, to an audience, which is what this is all about. But listen, always love, speaking with you. I'll ask you one last question. Do you think the government gets this right when it comes to this space?
Eventually. That's the answer I'm going to give is eventually. I think Oregon and Colorado, kind of blazing a little bit of a path there and setting up the infrastructure for this. I have to be bullish, man. I have to be an optimist, but the Eeyore in me wants to say they might F it up. But I think God is sending us a message like, you all need some help, man. And here it is. First of all, it's been here for thousands of years. You all are just kind of waking up to it, but don't mess it up. And that's going to be my job, Shad, is to hold government's feet to the fire.
Yeah, makes sense. Listen, appreciate the time. Let's keep in touch. Anthony, good to see you as well, sir. Keep in touch.
Thank you.
See you guys.
So what'd you all think of the interview? Did you like what we recorded with our guests? Then leave a comment below and let us know what you thought of it. And if there's any more questions you want us to ask, as usual, share this video with your network, click on that bell for all notifications, and most importantly, subscribe to our channel because we would not be here without you. Thanks for watching, everyone.